Good evening. This is Women Warriors channel. I'm Myra. It's been a while. I just to be completely honest and open, I have been sick. I would wait to get better from all the coughing and then wait after I was better and put it off too long, and here come another bout of sickness. So, and I am still coughing considerably, but I want to finish reading Truly's Travels, and so I hope I can get through, at least read one chapter tonight. And also, since it's taken me so long to get to the end of the book, I want to go ahead and tell you that if you will send me an email, the first person that sends me an email at myragary@yahoo.com, I will give you a free copy of the book. And this is the book, and we're on chapter 22, Victory for Honest. So Honest continued with her story. Peaceful tried to talk to me as well as the family. She tried many evenings to persuade me to end the friendship and get back to the middle of the path. I became angry with her. I told her that she had friends her age to talk to. I did not, and that I needed a friend my age. Then one day she tried to walk with me. I asked her to travel with the family and leave me alone, but she stayed. I was surprised at my actions, and I could see that I was changing in my attitudes, but these things didn't stop me. The only time Peaceful left us alone was at lunchtime. She would always eat with the family then. I would think that finally Peril and I could talk alone. I realized that I didn't want Peaceful to know the things that we talked about. Peril talked about his friends and going to parties where things happened that shouldn't. At first it troubled me, then after a while I pushed it aside and just listened quietly. As time went on, he began to invite me to one of his parties. I told him no many times, but he continued to ask me. One day he said that we could slip away after everyone was settled for the night and go to this party. I did not know it then, but Peaceful had heard this. I finally agreed to meet him at the party. That night I slipped away, unaware that Peaceful was following me. Peaceful let me know she was there. I was so angry with her and asked her to go back, but she insisted that I needed her. As we reached the party, there was loud music that was so loud, talking to each other was impossible. Inside the building was so much smoke it was hard to see where you were walking. The people who were there were all laughing, but I had a feeling that they were not happy. Some of them were stumbling around as if they had been drinking. I noticed that Peaceful was crying, and truthfully, at this point, I wanted to cry with her. What had I done? As I was having these troubling thoughts, Peril grabbed my hand and led me to an empty room. He closed the door and would not let Peaceful come in. The look on her face stabbed my heart. I told Peril that I must insist that we stay with the others. Then I saw something in his face that I had never seen before. He was no longer kind. Anger had taken the place of it. I felt that he would not let me out of the room. All of a sudden, I saw everything so clearly. The reasons for all the warnings, the reason I was troubled about it, the real danger I was facing, and that Peaceful had been dragged into it with me. I was so ashamed. I began to cry out to the King of Kings. I remembered the words of the book. I was encouraged and given hope. Peril angrily led me out of the building, and when he stopped, I looked at him and spoke in a very stern voice. Peaceful and I are leaving. We don't belong here. Peaceful found us and stood by me. Peril laughed at me and asked me how in the world would we find our way back in the dark. And as Peaceful and I looked at each other with terror in our eyes, a strong, gentle hand touched my shoulder. It was Mr. Kindheart. I was never so happy to see someone in my life. I thanked the King of Kings right there in front of Peril and all the party goers. Mr. Kindheart led Peaceful and me away from that party and back to the others on the path. He never said a word of rebuke to me, although I knew that I deserved it. But I think he knew that I had learned my lesson, and he was right. I learned that lesson so well that I warned every young person I ever met with on the way not to do the same as I did. I haven't wanted to live on the edge of the path anymore. I'm so thankful for the protection of the King that night and the precious folks that he's given me to travel with along the way. So that's the end of chapter. Let me see if I can squeeze in chapter 23 tonight. The shadow of death, as long as I don't start coughing. Everyone was so happy for Honest and her deliverance from peril. But even though Truly was so interested in hearing Honest's story, she noticed that she was still sleepy. So she and Bravely shared some of their stories. Sometime later, she noticed she felt more awake. Maybe we are soon to be past the enchanted grounds, said Uncle gladly. And so they were. It was a beautiful day, and they were all awake enough to enjoy it. A few days of travel passed by with all the travelers enjoying each other's company, but anxious to get to their destination. They were all thinking about the Celestial City, their true home. The next morning, having got on their way, the travelers rounded a bend in the road. Truly stood still gazing at the sight in front of them. The rest of the travelers were awed by what they saw, for there in front of them was a beautiful river. On the other side of the river was the most beautiful city they had ever seen. It was so shiny and bright that the group could hardly stand to look at it. Just then, two men came up to the travelers and asked why they were there and where they were going. Uncle, Auntie, and the others shared with the men that they were on their way home to the Celestial City. They told them why they had come and of the things that had happened to them along the way. The men were filled with joy to hear the news of the pilgrims, and you could see the joy on their faces. They told the pilgrims how happy they were that they had made it. They were almost home. The Celestial City was before them. They only need to cross the river, then be led up to the gates of the city. But they must swim across. There are no boats and no bridge. Truly asked, "Is the river very deep, sirs?" One of the men said, "The depth of the river isn't what matters. It is your faith in the King of Kings that matters." "Can you help us cross?" asked Auntie. The man answered her, "No, this is something you must do on your own." Bravely started into the water first, and all followed him. Some found the water deeper, others walked on the bottom, but all had to fight against the current. Truly found that it was deeper than she thought. She could see the city, but as she tried to swim across, she thought of all the ways she had failed the king. She began to cry in fear. She worried that the king might not receive her into the city. Bravely and Peaceful could see her struggling and began to remind her of her faith. They reminded her what the book said, and that she indeed would make it. Auntie also struggled. She could hear the verses from the book being shouted to Truly over the loudness of the current. Auntie took courage from the truth of the book. Truly remembered that she had been delivered from the sins of her life. She remembered that the king loved her enough to send his only son to be her sacrifice. And she remembered that the king doesn't change. His compassions are still there for her. She began to trust in that and felt so light that she felt carried the rest of the way across. After the family all got across the river, there they were at the gate of the city. Truly was so overcome with happiness, she could not hide it. She started to praise the King of Kings. The others joined in, for they all felt such joy it could not be described. As they went up the hill to the gate of the city, they met the two men again. The men asked to see their invitations, which they all gave to the men. Then, as they all watched, amazed, the gates began to open, and the pilgrims stepped inside. Doesn't that just make you want to shout? Oh, it does me. Okay, so that brings us to the very last chapter of the book. And as I said, if you'll send me an email, the very first email that I see that comes through to my email at myragary@yahoo.com, I will email you back and send you a free copy of the book. And I can only do one at this time, so let me know, and God bless until next time.